Decisions hinder on profit. Many people are going to agree with the viewpoint that's more profitable to them, no matter the consequence to others. For example, in the 1900s, cigarette companies realized that their product was slowly killing people. The companies tried to cover up what they knew, all to make a profit. The companies made so much money, they had the resources to have a say in policy and regulation put in place on their own killing product. The companies would fund politicians, making politicians hugely biased. It's hard to vote against a company that, by funding your campaign, is allowing you to stay in office. The money made politicians vote against regulation on the sale of a product which was killing people. Almost the same phenomenon that occurred with the cigarette companies is occurring now with climate change. When fossil fuels burn, they emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. A greenhouse gas is a gaseous compound capable of absorbing radiation, meaning the greenhouse gases can trap heat in the atmosphere. The gases then disperse the heat in all directions, which is heating up the Earth. This is known as the greenhouse effect. It's considered the main cause of global warming. To clarify, global warming refers to the rise of Earth's surface temperature, while climate change refers to global warming and all of its side effects. Climate change is a crisis that could cause people's houses to go underwater, threaten our food and water supply, and make severe weather occur more frequently. Plus, if we continue burning fossil fuels at the same rate, all the effects of climate change have been scientifically proven to occur. In fact, we're already beginning to see the effects of climate change taking place. Governments all over the world should be putting in place regulations on how much fossil fuels can be burned and create incentives to encourage clean energy consumption. Many governments are doing this.
I believe that we should need to get rich first before we even think about environment. But now, we're suffering from that.
Suffering on an enormous scale, choking on toxic smog. Chinese officials have a history of misleading the public about pollution and harassing activists like Ma. Now they are helping him.
There's a real political will to try to control the pollution.
In the US, the swing seems to be in the opposite direction. President Trump has signed off on a controversial Keystone XL pipeline. The Environmental Protection Agency is now set to be led by a fossil fuels ally. China is funneling more than $260 billion into clean energy, far outstripping US efforts.
Our government should be putting in place science-based policies to try and solve a scientifically proven problem. But they aren't. Just like the cigarette issue, some congressmen get quite a bit of their campaigns funded from fossil fuel companies. This makes them reluctant to vote for a bill that could hurt fossil fuel business. Despite many people in Congress being pro-clean energy and accepting that climate change is man-made, it's hard to get anything done without a large majority of congressmen. And our president has said that climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive. Marco Rubio, a senator from Florida, admittedly denies climate change. Rubio was given $374,000 in campaign funding by fossil fuel companies when he ran for president in 2016.
I don't agree with the notion that some are putting out there, including scientists, that somehow there are actions we can take today that would actually have an impact on what's happening in our climate. Our climate is always changing. And what they have chosen to do is take a handful of decades of research and say that this is now evidence of a longer-term trend that's directly and almost solely attributable to man-made activity.
Rubio says that scientists have taken data from the last couple of decades and turned it into a longer-term trend. Earth's climate has always been changing, and scientists are fully aware of that. But the rate at which our climate is changing is dramatically accelerating. Scientists have looked at the effect that greenhouse gases have on the atmosphere. 97% of scientists and NASA agree that the shift we're seeing in climate is man-made. What other reason than the $374,000 could Rubio have for denying scientifically proven facts? Mark Hanna, who was a famous businessman and politician, once said, "There are two things that are important in politics. The first is money, and I can't remember what the second one is." The government isn't the only ones who need to care in order for progress on climate change to be made. The public needs to care, and for the public to care, they need to know about the issue. I conducted a survey on middle school teachers in Howard County to find out how much is being taught to students on the topic of climate change. The findings were surprising. In the middle school curriculum, teachers aren't required to teach anything major on climate change. I interviewed a couple of teachers to hear their ideas and opinions about climate change being taught in school. If you were able to create a new curriculum for the 6th grade, how much content would you want related to climate change?
I think I would include, I don't want to say a whole unit, but at least a week or two just on environmental science. It is a subject in high school, but it's not, I think it's an AP course, so it's not required or a regular course. But it would be nice to have just environmental science and just talk about, in addition to climate change, other things that we can do and include resources, renewable and non-renewable.
Definitely. And in fossil fuel states like Texas, do you think that politics influences what's taught about climate change and how much is taught about climate change in schools?
Yes, very much so. I totally feel that in states where there's a political climate that is perhaps against some of those science practices or against, or perhaps if it's really big fossil fuel state, like Sebastian said, that, yeah, it's definitely ties into what's taught in the curriculum because those people fund a lot of politicians, and then politicians are the ones who make the rules and the curriculum and whatnot. So, but I think hopefully that will change a little bit with the implementation of the next generation science standards across the country.
Great. Can you summarize a lesson on climate change that you might add to your curriculum?
In the past, I've brought in the Alliance for Climate Education, and they've come in and done a presentation and had a speaker come in, and I think that would be really good to bring back one of these days, maybe next year, hopefully. They've got a really cool, audiovisual presentation that they do, and then they do some stuff with the kids and talk about a little bit of climate education.
Right in Howard County, some of our schools and libraries are becoming greener. Wild Lake Middle School is completely net zero, which means that it produces as much energy as it needs over the course of the entire year. It has over 2,000 solar panels on its roof. Wild Lake isn't the only school in the district that's going green. Many buildings in Howard County are LEED certified, which means the buildings are energy and environmentally friendly. LEED requirements now guide the construction of Howard County public schools. Clearly, Howard County cares about our planet, and teaching kids about climate change is as necessary as making buildings ran by clean energy. Because these kids are going to be the next environmental scientists and people who solve climate change. These buildings can be used as a tool to educate kids about climate change. Decisions hinder on profit, which isn't just. Companies and people with vested interests in fossil fuels need to look beyond themselves. They need to look at the bigger picture and see how their decisions are affecting our entire world. It's not that we don't have the technology to solve climate change. We have renewable sources of energy that can take fossil fuels out of the picture. Educating about clean energy and climate change is the key to solving this problem.